Okay, this is going to be a how-to video on how to splice images for our visual pun assignment. So once you have your visual pun in terms of the what it is you're going to do, this one is going to be an example for horsefly. Okay, so let's say I've received that I'm going to do horsefly. And I've now tried to figure out what I'm going to do with that. So I need to think about what images I would need to use to construct a horsefly. So obviously, we're taking a fly, a horse, and then also what we're going to need to do is put it within an environment. So what I thought would be, well, I had to do a little investigation. I decided to look up what attracts a fly. So, what attracts a fly, for one thing, is like a sink, food sitting out. So, I decided to look online and I found this image. It's obviously a little nasty. It's ready to be cleaned out, but if it sat there for a little while, I would imagine it would attract a fly. So, it's a little on the nasty side right now, so good image to maybe place a fly within. So that would be a good environment. So the horse I selected was this one. Kind of looks like it's already in the air. So, it's off the ground, so the legs aren't connected to the ground. So I thought this would be a good image to use. Also, it's kind of in motion, which a fly might would be. And so I selected this fly not just because of its body, right? I'm replacing its body with the horse. I just essentially want its wings. Now, I could use its size, even it depends on how far I want to take this horse and how I want to change it so much to turn it into a fly. But right now, I'm just going to attach this wing onto this horse. So, I'm going to need to open these with Photoshop. And so there's my sync train. Now there's, let me just go ahead and open the rest of my images in Photoshop. Now I might could potentially just drag this down to my Photoshop. Oh, I can't see it. I got something in the way down here. Let me move this out of the way and see if I can drop it. That's another way to do it. So, all right. So let me go back to my sync. Now I have a feeling, I think my horse, since it's going this direction, kind of like the horse going that direction, maybe I feel like the sync, I'm going to do this so that the fly or the horse is the horse fly is kind of flying away from this. And I kind of would like the idea, I think if the sync was on the left-hand side rather than right-hand side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to image, image rotation, flip horizontally. So I kind of like that. All right, so now let me go to my horse. Okay, now I'm going to need to remove my horse from its background. I need to remove it from this field, right? And this I'm going to need to use a selection tool. So my selection tool I'm going to use is this fourth one down right here. Okay, this is the quick selection tool. Now you also have the magic wand tool underneath that, so you might have that there. Just need to get to this one. Now up here on the options, you need to make sure that you are using the one that's the positive. I'm going to get my green arrow so everyone make sure you know what I'm pointing at. this one. Okay, we want to make sure that we have this one and not the negative. This one will take away selection, this one will add selection. So we're going to use this one for now. Now, if you notice, the circle is kind of small. If I go to the brackets that are above the return key, just up and left to it. If I go to the left bracket, it'll shrink it down. If I go to the right bracket, it will increase it. But obviously also they have something here that will allow you to increase or decrease the size as well. But I find using those brackets, increase and decrease very quickly, very easily. So I've got the plus, not the minus. I will go back and forth, you'll see. So I'm going to start to click and kind of push my way along inside the horse. You'll find this thing kind of stretches out and reaches for high contrast kind of contour edges. The larger the selection tool, it seems to want to reach out quickly and grab and select areas. So I'm not going out towards the tail or out to the smaller parts of the leg, just because of the size of this circle right now. So I'm going to release that, decrease the size of this. Now I'm going to go in these smaller narrow areas and start clicking. All I'm doing is clicking. I'm not clicking and dragging. I'm just clicking and releasing. And that allows me to kind of have a little more control in what I'm selecting. Now, if I need to see a little bit closer what I'm doing, of course, I can zoom in. And that may help in making sure you're getting a good selection. Because that's what's going to be really key to this assignment, is how well you use this tool. If you can pull this off in terms of making it believable that this was not just cut out and then placed somewhere, it can be believable. But if we have a lot of kind of a bad edge to it, or in terms of what's selected, if we have some green of the grass in there, or things are kind of sloppy around the edge, that can really make a big difference in terms of whether or not we buy into this, in terms of whether it's believable or not. So I'm going to zoom in even a little more, and it looks like we've got a little grass right there. I may want to go in and touch up a little bit to make sure getting everything I want, so I could even decrease this further and maybe get up in these little hairs a little bit. And I think hair is probably the biggest thing that can be of an issue in terms of selecting things and kind of giving me a giveaway. Hair, doing the selection tool wants to kind of generalize areas and shapes, and therefore, as you can see here, it's got a bit of green, getting into some of the green in here. But I can always go back and touch that up, see a little bit of green there. And of course, all this hair kind of going out here, I just don't, you can try to do the best you can. And there are some other ways around this. So I don't know if even really selecting that would be a good idea. And I'll talk more about that later. But I'll just get what I can here. Just going around the image, making sure if there's anything else that could be selected, that might need to be selected. All right, so here we're going to go to the minus. This is where we're going to see the cleanup. So I'm going to increase size on that just a little bit. Now I'm going to hit up against that green area and click until I start getting a better selection there. I might want to make this a little smaller. If I don't get this hair just right, that's okay. Definitely we'll do something about this. Now there's some other things we're going to do on the selection that's going to really make a difference. Just because of the software of Photoshop, it has some special abilities to be able to make a good edge. And we'll get to that in just a moment. Do what I can with my process in terms of going out and making a good selection here. And again, I don't think this was a good idea right now. It's looking a little funny, so I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. And what I can do, I can always do something different with this later in terms of that edge. Get rid of this green here. Get rid of this little green here. A little green there. And maybe through here too. So I'm trying to give the edge some detail. Might want to get a little bit of that back. So I'm going to get my plus and then go in and grab a little bit of that which I deleted earlier. Okay, so I feel like that's a pretty good outlining contour selection of the edge of this horse. Okay? So now, here's the trick. Here's what's nice about having software. Let's go to Refine Edge right here. Click on that, okay? And check this out. Okay, so this will refine the edge. This will give us a way to make sure the edge of this, it has different ways. You have something here where we can change the view. We can do it on white. Which definitely changes the way the edge looks in terms of our being able to see what we have versus the black, which then it also reveals some things about that edge. Transparency, there we're back to the natural. That was like kind of an orange overlay. So we got all kinds of things for which we can view this. So we can make sure we have a good edge on this in terms of what we want. I'll leave it on black for right now. Now we got radius, we got smooth, we got adjust edge to be smooth, feather, contrast, shift edge, a lot of stuff. Okay, so check this out. So let's go to radius. The only way you're going to learn about this stuff is if you go really far with it sometimes to the extremes and just see what it looks like in the preview to know what it is you would get if you use these different things. Okay, so I feel like that's too much. That's too much. And that feels about just right. I like that edge versus to the extremes of one or the other. We could try and click on this if that makes a difference. That does make a big difference, and I don't know about that. So it feels like we lose the legs when I click on that. So we'll leave that checked. Now let's go to smooth all the way. We're revealing some stuff here we may not want to see. So let's back off on that. Yeah, let's leave that backed off. So now let's go to feather. Go all the way on that. Oh my goodness, we just lost it. Let's bring it back some. Okay, we're going to extremes here. Let's go all the way back here. Let's go out just a slight amount, maybe a little bit more. And you start to see this sort of green edge appear, okay? But what it does is it really kind of softens the edge. And maybe if we went to white, we might could see it a little better. Not really. But we definitely don't want this green of the grass around it, right? So I think this shift is what really makes a big difference. If I go this way, what it does is it shifts the selection more towards the outside of the horse, away from the horse. Or if I do shift edge, what it does is it takes the selection more into the horse. So that way I can get it to where the selection is really relying more at the very edge of the horse. Now that is what I think probably is the most useful part of the refine edge is this shift edge. That you can make sure that you're not going too far out into the green, not make sure you're not getting too far into the horse. You're getting it right at the edge. So I feel pretty good about that. Even if we go to the white, I feel like, I can really see a good portion of the edge of this horse. Now, I would like to zoom in. I don't know if I can zoom in on this. Here we go. We got a little magnifying glass. Oh, yeah, nice. So now if I click, no, oops, didn't mean to do that. Okay, how do I back out on this? Okay, I keep clicking. If I hold shift, nope. Uh-oh. How do I get back out of this? Okay. Command, if you go next to shift, command, and then negative, you got command plus and command negative. Now, usually, you use your two fingers on the trackpad, you can spread them apart to zoom in and then bring them closer to zoom out. That doesn't work here. Okay, sometimes that doesn't work in Photoshop, depending on what you're using. So right now I have like a plus on that magnifying glass, and I can zoom, 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 zoom. But how do I back out? Well, and all the way I'm doing zoom is I'm hitting the trackpad, right? So I have to go to command and then minus to back out. Anyway, all right. So let's see how we're doing this edge here. That might help us if we kind of zoom in here. Oh, get a little pixelated. Now let's look at the feather. If I go out on the feather, look what that's doing. That's softening up the edge so much. It's too much. And if we go all the way into 0 on the feather, look what we have. This has this kind of pixelated, kind of jagged edge, right? Where if we kind of go out on the feather just a little, look how it softens that up. Just ever so slightly softens that up. That can make a huge difference. Let's try smooth now. I don't think I'm liking what smooth is doing so much. Contrast, that's actually going to make it kind of crisp again and more kind of jagged, right? Kind of pixelated. So no contrast gets it very smooth. All contrast makes it very kind of defined and pixelated, really. So let's kind of back out on that to what we might feel comfortable. All right, too much, not enough, just right. Just like the three little bears, right? Okay, so I think that's going to make a good selection. So let me back on this. Command minus. Take that out. Right? Look at the edge on that. In terms of cutting this out and then moving it over to somewhere, I think that's going to make a good selection. Now this a little bit of green that's coming in through there, we could do something with that. Even there, you can kind of see a little bit of the hair coming out right there. Right? Cool. All right, I'm gonna click OK. Now this is what it is. This is our selection. This is our original selection. But this is what we're going to get. Okay, this is when we go to copy this. So you'll see. I'm going to hit OK on this. So, all right. Click OK. Now, I'm going to Command C to copy. Okay, I'm going to copy this. So now I'm going to go to my sync. and we're going to Command V, right? So let's zoom in on this. So look at the edge on that horse. Look how that turned out. You know, I see just a tinge of green right around the edge, but you'd have to really be kind of looking closely if you're someone to really notice that, okay? So I might could have shifted the contour in just a slight bit more, just to get rid of that green, and then kept a little bit of feather, and it probably would turn out. But if I zoom out on this, it's looking pretty good, okay? All right. So one thing I don't like about this so far right now, and was one thing I was thinking about, was, you know, the amount of focus of on this horse, how in focus it is versus how in focus the sink is. If I want to separate these two and make them not look like as if it's really it looks kind of weird right now. I can try to out of focus this sink because it's called depth of field, so that the thing that's closest to me is in focus and the thing that's further away from me is out of focus. Typically, we see things like that in the way cameras work. So I'm going to click on this background right over here in my layers. I'm going to go to filter. I'm going to go to blur, and I think it is blur more. Nope. It is blur. Is it blur? No. Sorry if it's taking me a second here. Lens blur. I'm sorry, it took me a minute to get to it. Lens blur. All right, so lens blur is going to, now look at that. So this is now look pretty blurred. Lens blur. So as anything in Photoshop, we got a lot of little things we can make adjustments with over here. Right now this looks pretty good. That's probably because I already did this before I started video recording. I practiced. I think it's probably in the same setting. But anyway, if you want to, you could explore some of these things. Radius, I think, yeah, that does pretty drastic things. Kind of like the way it was. Something about right about there. Let's see what that does. I don't think these do a lot right here with the blade curvature and rotation. I think this radius was the key thing here. Specular highlights. Let's see what that does. Not seeing a lot of difference there. So, you know, sometimes playing around, you know, will get you some very surprising effects, as we see there. That's pretty neat there. But I don't think that's what we want here. So let's just get it back to normal. Noise, yeah, you might want that at some point, sometime, but I don't think I want that here. Okay, so I think that's pretty well out of focus, okay? So I'm gonna click okay. Now look how much that horse stands out compared to that background. And I think it's because, you know, this is very in focus, very defined, whereas that background is very undefined. I'll move this horse out of the way real quick. So I click the move key, or the move tool, sorry. And oops, I'm on the wrong layer. I need to click on the horse layer. So let me move this out of the way real quick. Now, there's something else I can do. I feel like the contrast in this background image is too much like the contrast in here. What I mean by that, the lights and darks. So let me go back and click on this background layer, and let me just kind of wash it out a little bit. So I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, Exposure. So I'm going to kind of overexpose this background, or under. No, let's not do that. Let's do this. I can't. Let's see. Edit. No, image. adjustments, levels. Okay, let's try this. So I'm going to back off on the darks a little bit. There we go. There we go. That kind of really washes it out. I mean, I could wash it out too far. But I feel like right now we're about right there. It feels like a good sweet spot. Right about there. I feel like that horse really stands out good from that background. So I just took this little marker, this black marker on the output levels, and just kind of pulled in a little bit, took away some of the darks, and that way the horse remains at most of the darks, right? So therefore it stands out more than the background does. So we got blur on this, hard edges, high contrast, lower contrast, less definition, more definition. Therefore, now this image seems to appear closer, right, than this one. All right, so placement of the horse. Where do I want the placement of the horse? How big do I want the horse? All that I need to take into consideration in terms of making it feel like as if it's connected and tied to this environment. So I'm going to click Command T to transform this. Let me make sure I'm on the right layer. Click Command T. Now I can shrink this down some. All right, you see what's happening? Not good. Let me undo that, Command Z. Now to constrain this, I need to click Shift and then go to the corner. And as I shrink and then or expand this, it'll constrain it. I feel pretty good about that size. Let's move it about right here. And let's curve him a little bit, like as if he's flying. He's not just running across the ground. This horse fly is flying away from this thing. Okay. Whoops. I remember, hold the shift key. And I can always adjust and move this later, depending on how it's working out, where I think the placement of this might look best. Okay, gonna hit the return key. So I feel pretty good about that. You might feel somewhere else is a little better. You might find a different size a little better, a different angle is a little better. It's all a matter of personal taste on that. Okay. All right. So we've got our background. We've got our horse in place. We've got a good selection. We know how to make good selections. Now we got to go make a good selection on our fly wing. So I'm going to go to the fly and select this wing. Now before my battery goes dead, I need to get my charger. And plug that in real quick. So let me do that real fast. All right. Drink of water. All right, so let's do this wing. All right, so let's zoom in a little bit so we can get a better shot on this. Now I want this wing right here, right? So same thing. Go do the quick selection tool. Make sure it's on plus. Increase the size or decrease the size to what you want. Start selecting that. If it goes outside the selected area that you want, that's okay. We can deselect with the minus. Okay, so I'm going to go click on the minus, go in here and get rid of this. Anything we don't want. I think I do want that. Go back and reselect that again. Don't want that. Deselect on this. All right. I like that. Okay. So let's go to refine edge again and see what that looks like. All right, that looks like it's a little too extreme reduced on that edge. I think that has to do with smart radius. Let me back off on that. Yeah, I need to back off on that a lot. Let's see. Shift edge maybe too. Nope. Go back out this way. Too much. Contrast. Kind of like that. All right, feeling pretty good about that. Let's try this against black. See what that looks like. Feels pretty good. I kind of like that. Let's go back to white. Let's see on the feather here. If we did more feather versus less feather. Whoa. I'm going to eventually try to do something about that. At 0 feather, you can see just how jagged and rough the edge is. So just even the slightest amount of feather. That's at 1.2. That's at 1.9, not even 2. And then at 3.4, that just looks like a little too much. So let's go down to something like 1.5. I feel like pretty good about that. So I'm going to say okay on that. Back out, Command minus, Command C to copy, go to sync layer with the horse. I'm going to Command V to paste. Now I can click my move tool. I can move this around. I can zoom in. I'm going to find a good place to attach this. I feel like that's a good place, kind of right there on the shoulder. All right, so I can make all kinds of now little adjustments to this. After all, I feel like pretty good about the edge. I think that's not too obvious an edge. I feel like that was a good, nice edge to be selected. So, all right, I don't feel like the angle of this wing. I don't feel like the kind of distortion on the wing in terms of its angle. I feel like there's a lot of things that we could adjust better on this wing to make it feel like it's fitting on this horse, like it's flying. Okay. Because if we go back to the fly, if you look, this fly is like facing downwards and there's its wing. Whereas the horse on this image is kind of flying up. So it just feels like the angles just aren't quite working out. But we can adjust that. Okay. So I'm going to go to Command T. Go rotate that down this way a little bit. Go hit return. Go to Edit, Transform, Distort. I'm going to bring this down a little bit. Like as if that wing edge is kind of closer to us and this one's kind of further back in space. And I'm feeling I'm going to adjust that just a little bit. I bring that down and in a little bit. Okay, so I feel pretty good about that. I feel like that wing is like flapping outwards, right? I feel pretty good about that. And you can see just how much we had to distort that. I mean, that was a lot of distortion to make that work. So I'm going to click OK. Actually, I'm going to rotate this down just a little bit. I don't think this thing's going to let us rotate. Not like the other rotation or the transform tool. So I'm going to click return on that, and then go Command T to rotate this just a slight amount and bring this down to the shoulder. Maybe a little too much. Okay, I feel really good about that. Okay, I'm going to hit return. All right. Now, there is still some issues to make this believable. Okay, we've come a long ways. We now need to make this wing feel like it really belongs on this horse. And there's a couple little tricks we can do. This right here is remnants from the fly, the original image. If I go back to that, you can see this part of the fly. So a fly wing is fairly transparent. You can see right here how we can see the leg through the wing. We just know that fly wings are fairly transparent. Right now, we're not seeing anything behind this horse, like this tail, the back of the horse, or any of this back here that makes us feel like as if this wing belongs on this horse, and that is transparent. Now the brown that's right here kind of similar to the brown that's on the horse. That way it feels kind of natural. But let's get some things to where we can see through this wing and be able to see this tail and be able to see the back of this horse. So how are we going to do that? Go here and click on the eraser tool. I'm going to go up here and click on the, make sure I have the hard edge selected. Well, let's go with the feather. Okay. Now let's go to the opacity and drop that down to like about 50%. Something like around 50%, something like that. Now we'll go over to the horse and I'm going to start clicking and kind of dragging. You're not going to see a lot of difference going back and forth until it's going to be very gradual. And I don't want to get too far down here, but look at that edge of that. Now I've released it. I'm not clicking and holding anymore. I'm not erasing. I'm just pointing out. Look at that edge of the back of the horse coming through. Okay, so let me just go in and start erasing a little more. And what it's doing is allowing now the color of the surrounding area to come through. I'm kind of avoiding, now I've released now, I don't want to get completely erased. I kind of feel like I maybe erased a little too much right there. So I'm going to hit Command Z. Maybe do this again. I'm going to go back and erase. Maybe make it very subtle. So I erase too much, and it's going to look kind of weird. I don't want to make it look weird. I don't want to be too transparent, like as if there's nothing there. Okay, so let's see, erase a little bit of that edge right there. Very subtle kind of thing, right? So now I'm going to erase a little more up to, I'm going to erase up to in this area. Try avoiding that kind of little linear kind of thing. I feel like we really need that linear part. Maybe it's a vein of some sort, I don't know. Okay, so erase up through here. We're seeing the tail kind of come through. Now I feel like I went too far. You know what I can do? If I, maybe went too far with the erasing, I can go back and paint on top of this, right? I like that. And maybe I can take some of that color and put in there. But let me back out on this, see what that looks like. That actually looks pretty good. That actually don't look too bad. But if I feel like I'm seeing a little too much right here, I could go in here and select this eyedropper tool and select a color that I want to use. Let's say maybe this kind of milky, kind of gray. And then we go use my paintbrush. Now, I'm just saying you don't have to do this, but I'm seeing something that I would like to do to kind of go in and adjust some of this. So I'm going to go and kind of paint on top of this a little bit to kind of even out where I used the brush. I'm sorry, the eraser. And kind of even some of this stuff out. Because when you use the eraser, sometimes when you click and then release and then click and release, it kind of goes a little too far. So I'm getting a little special little touch up to try to spread some of the same color throughout. And maybe, kind of haze out some of this horse that became a little too visible. So now it feels a little more transparent. And I used that with the brush. And I had the opacity down. And I selected sort of this gray color. So I'm back out on that. And I feel pretty good about that. I feel like this stuff's kind of a little high definition right now in some of this. And that could be adjusted again. I could use what I got right now, drop the opacity down to kind of haze it out a little bit, increase the size of this, and kind of go in and soften some of this up a little bit. Or now that kind of soften that up very gradually. I could back out on it. I might be going a little extreme on this. You can just go crazy on it. Just to fix and adjust edges. Okay? I like it. Okay? So what I'm going to do now is I want to select this wing. I'm going to duplicate it and put it over on this side. Okay? So let's do this. Let's go do our lasso tool. I'm going to go select this. Okay. Then we're going to go Command C. We're going to go Command D to deselect. I'm going to go Command V to paste. So I'm going to go Command T. Okay. And I need to do something where I flip it. So it's going the opposite direction. Okay. So I'm going to hit return. I'm going to go to edit. I'm going to go to transform. Now I'm going to go flip horizontal. Okay. Now, oops, didn't mean to do that. Go to the move tool, move this over. I'm going to go to the command T, and I'm going to rotate it, bring it to where as if this is like on the other side of the shoulder, right? So I'm just trying to think of the alignment of where this is to where the other shoulder would be on the other side of the horse. Okay. So now I can kind of see how these wings are kind of opposed to one another. I think it looks pretty good. I could hit return. I could do the edit, transform, distort a little bit. Image is a little big. I can't really make it out. So let's say, let's shrink this wing down a little bit, like as if it's kind of angled out. And you could just play with those kind of things just to so you feel whatever you're trying to fit within the place, the angle of where it's at, if it feels right. Now, obviously, I shouldn't see this right now, and there's going to be a little trick we're going to do to finish this off, okay? All right, so I feel pretty good about that. All right, so I'm going to hit return. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to delete or erase this part of the wing so it looks like it's on the other side of the horse. All right, so I'm going to go here and get my eraser tool and make sure it's on 100%. I'm going to put it on hard edge and increase the size a little bit right here. I'm just going to start erasing. Now to get into the smaller detail areas, I'm going to decrease the size of it. Zoom in. And finish that off. Zoom out. And I feel pretty good about that. So there is our horsefly, okay? Now, if I really wanted to kind of move it around in terms of its placement to the sink, I could do that. In terms of if I wanted to, I could select all these areas. If I come over to the layer areas and I hit the shift key, I come down to the horse and click down there and it selects all these areas. I come up to the move tool. I can then move this and place it wherever I want. This maybe I like it right there. Maybe I want to shrink the whole thing, go to Command T. I could rotate it as a whole image and adjust it, shrink it down, increase the size, whatever I want to do to get it into the placement that I want it. Now it's kind of being treated all as one image. Just because I have all the layers selected. Okay, hit return. And that's it. All right, I got me a horsefly. And it's near a dirty sink. It's within its place. And there's my visual pun. So those are the tips and tricks you're going to need in order to make your images look believable. I will say one more thing. I'm going to zoom in on this wing. I can do something a little bit more to make it feel like it belongs on this horse, okay? And I'm going to take the eyedropper tool. I'm going to come in here and select a color of the horse. I'm going to take my brush, and right now I want to make sure I'm just on this wing right here. And I'm going to go up here, and I got the opacity. It's very low right now, which would probably be good. It's only about like 25%. It's only soft edge. And I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to lightly put in some of the color on this wing. That's the sort of the same color of the horse. And it's just a very transparent kind of overlay on that. Okay, just in this area. And if I want to, I could select some of this. I'm going to go to the eyedropper tool again. Now, you click the I key on your keypad, you're going to get the dropper tool. So I'm going to click here. Now, if you click the B key on your keypad, get you back to the brush. Now, it feels like as if it's a little bit more part of the horse. Cool. All right. That's it. And that is all for this tutorial.